Times of great uncertainty are also times of great opportunity. Hello, everyone. My name's Susan Goldsworthy. I'm Professor of Leadership, Communications and Organizational Change here at IMD, and I'm delighted to be with you to talk about energy. And you'll see that I've actually changed the title. So it's not managing, because that's a little bit artificial. It's about attuning. How can we attune to our own and our team's energy and the broader energy in society and the world? Because we are at a critical time. And what we do these next days, weeks, months, years is going to make a significant difference to the impact we have on the planet, for our children and our grandchildren. And so this topic has never been more important. So very welcome. Great to have you all here. I'm here with Faith, who's doing all the masterworks behind the scenes, and Loic on the creative production side, and also Gabby, who I'll introduce in a moment. So we have a great team, and I'm really, really looking forward. If you have, please put any comments or questions or welcomes or anything in the chat, because I can watch that and we can have a dialogue as we go through. So let me start by giving you a free offer. So, you've tuned in for this webinar. You deserve to get something for tuning in for the webinar, right? So the offer that we have for you this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are, or this evening, is a free magic pill, okay? So taken daily, it has no negative side effects. However, it will decrease your risk of strokes, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and obesity. And it will improve your memory, keep your bones stronger, and help you live longer. So how many of you, and if you could put in the chat, how many of you would take me up on this free IMD free magic pill that we can send out after this webinar? Oh, yes, here we come. I'm in. Wonderful. People are here. Of course. Fantastic. Yes, yes. Two for Alexi. Brilliant. This is wonderful. And it's so nice. I have to say the energy lifts as soon as I see you all coming in here. It's fabulous. Sure, do it. Okay, great. So we're all up for having this, and I'll come back to this later. Okay, we'll come back to this magic pill. So now cast your mind back to February 2020, and the world changed dramatically early 2020, right? Because of COVID. And I remember being up in the mountains with a group, and we were working, it was February. And one of the participants from Hong Kong came in and said, I'm going to have to do a 14-day quarantine once I return. And I remember turning to the coaches I was with and saying, wow, wouldn't it be great to have 14 days at home without getting on a plane? Now, little did we realize that that was going to turn into 2 years, right? And probably longer. And this is a wonderful thing about the human brain, because I don't know if you remember this, but towards the end of 2020, December 2020, a lot of people were saying, I can't wait for 2020 to be over. It's just been this awful year. Let's move into 2021. Like a virus knows human beings' calendar years, right? and so this is a wonderful thing about human behavior is, there is a living world and there is a socially constructed world that humans have created. And, the sun rises and the sun sets, but calendar years and months are human creations. And so viruses don't respect this at all. And so we had 2020. And now what we have is 2021, which turned out to be similar. And this is quite exhausting, right? Because it's massive uncertainty for people. So all our routines and all our structures and our illusions of control have shifted. And so not only did we have this going through 2021, but just recently, there were two significant things. We had COP26, where, the message around, we basically are going in the middle of a sixth mass extinction. If we continue to live the way we're living, we're not going to continue living. This is serious stuff, right? This is a serious message. And then we had Omicron. And with all the reactions to that as well. And so once again, massive uncertainty coming up and popping up again. And so this is why it's so challenging for human beings. We have to think about how we're managing our energy, because leadership is changing. And I actually think this is a good thing. I think that the great news about this crisis is the opportunity for us to change and to update leadership from an archaic model that didn't serve us as well as it needed to, and certainly isn't fit for purpose for the future, to a new model. And so when we look at our energy, I've been doing some research since April 2020, since the pandemic kind of started globally. And I've been asking people in sessions like this, where has your energy been in the past 2 months? Are you mostly in the performance zone where you feel high energy and positive? Are you in the recovery zone where it's positive but low? So, that could be sleep, but it's also chilled, relaxed. Are you in survival zone, which is negative high, where you feel frustrated or irritable or anxious? Or are you in burnout zone, where it's negative energy, low energy, where there's a sense of frustration or exhaustion? And so the question is, where have you been for the past 2 months, mostly? Now, we're all in all four, I believe, in today's world. And I'm going to share with you the results, because they are actually extremely important for organizations and leaders and for humanity. And so they have major implications. So I will share the results with you in a moment. But first, we're going to ask you to do a poll. And so Faith is going to launch the poll here. Okay, so the votes are coming in. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. No, one answer only, Tanya, please. We'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, mostly in performance. So I'm going to talk about this in a second, because it's very interesting. What my discussions with people are what's emerging from this research is fascinating. So let's have a look at the results. Faith, if you could share the results, thank you. So 43% of you are in performance zone mostly in the last 2 months. So that's great, right? However, the majority of you are not, right? And this is really, really important. I'm glad you love the octopus, Christian. So the octopus shows that there's a poll, and the difference between the octopus and myself, I've realized in doing these, is that the octopus never drops a cube. Right? In today's world, cubes get dropped, right? But he hasn't, or she hasn't dropped one yet. So yeah, what's really interesting here is 25% of you saying you're in recovery, 26% in survival, and 5% in burnout. So that's over 30% of you on this call today are feeling primarily on the left-hand side, survival and burnout. And as many of you have said in the chat, yeah, you might feel in performance, but you might flip across more quickly. And again, that's what people are saying who are saying, look, I'm in the performance zone. However, I get frustrated more easily, or I lose it more quickly, or I get exhausted more quickly. And so the bandwidth has narrowed, and we're flipping across more quickly. So let's just close that poll, and let me share with you the results from what I've been doing with, it's now over 1,650 leaders, executives like yourselves around the world, all different countries, all different businesses. When I started in April 2020, it was between 5 and 12% of people were on the left-hand side. Since April 2021, it's between 35 and 75% of executives are saying that they are in survival or burnout. Okay, now this is critical. What we're seeing with most organizations is it's around 50 as well, 50%, right? So 30 to 35 is on the low end. That's the good news, right? It tends to be more half-half. So even if you are feeling, hey, Paul, lovely to see you. Even if you are feeling that you're in the performance zone, if you're in a room with other people, the chances that they're also in the performance zone are extremely low. Yeah, it's 1 in 2. If one is in the performance zone, the other one isn't. Yeah. And so that's so important for being aware, to be aware that where you are, other people probably might be in a different zone. Yeah. And so therefore, the way that we relate to each other, the way that we connect with each other is becoming even more important. And we have to become more human. We have to become more compassionate. We have to bring our full selves to the dialogue and the discussion, rather than this artificial separation, the dualism, of work and home, this kind of stuff. No, everything is merged in today's world. And actually, I think this is healthy in the long run. However, we have to relearn the way that we're actually leading, the way that we relate in business, because the rules have shifted. And so what's important here is, how do we create the conditions to thrive? So Carl Rogers talks about the actualizing tendency, which is that every living organism, and we're a living organism, just as, around the world, we have trees, we have plants, we have microbes, we have animals, are all living organisms. And all living organisms have the inherent tendency to want to grow and develop, to fulfill its potential, right? So it's a natural biological state. However, the conditions that it finds itself in will make a difference to how well that the organism grows, right? So you see here a tomato plant, right? The tomato plant that lands on rich, fertile soil is going to grow much better than a tomato plant that doesn't. And so we use this metaphor for leadership, right? Is your role as a leader is to create the conditions where you and other people can thrive in uncertainty, in a massively changing world where different worlds, different boundaries are colliding. The separations are dissolving, which is actually great news. Yeah. And I'm seeing here a few things based on assumption capable of accurate self-assessment. It's really interesting, Nick, that you say this, because we were doing this yesterday with a group, and one of the participants said that he's actually learned that he's in denial because his mind tells him he's in performance zone, and he'd just been to the doctor, and the doctor said, you're showing signs of stress. And he's like, actually, now you say it, I'm noticing in my body. Right? I'm noticing feelings in my body that I'm ignoring. And, our body is one of the greatest communicators with our mind, right? They are connected. And so we have to attune to our bodies. We have to connect, because if you ignore it mentally, it'll show up somewhere else. And the body will keep sending you signals. And if you keep ignoring it, the signals will get stronger and longer and more serious. Yeah. And so this is the critical thing about mind-body connection. We're not these detached brains, the Cartesian split, right? Where, we operate and we just happen to have this appendage called the body. No, our body, what happens with our body massively impacts what happens with us and our energy and how we deal with things and our emotions. And because of this, we have to walk our talk, right? I'm delighted to introduce Gabriella. Gabriella is an outstanding Pilates teacher, and I have the pleasure of working with her on sessions like this. And she's going to introduce, and I want you to all join in, right? Because I guarantee you, another guarantee, along with the magic pill, that I guarantee you'll have more energy in 7 minutes' time than you do now. Gabriella, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. I'm delighted to be here with you. And Susan mentioned about connecting, that we're all connected and we send energy, but we also take some energy on us. So in order to connect, I would love to hear from you. And sometimes it takes very little time to connect and to know each other. Please write in the chat, what do you like doing? What makes your heart beat a little bit faster? For me, there are 3 things I will share with you. It's Pilates, I love it. I love dogs, and I love art. 3 things that I use when I'm working with people. So go ahead, share. Let's prove that we need only 1 minute in order to know a little bit more about each other. And we're more than 270 people here. Sports, outdoor, music, excellent. Cooking, dance, exercising, playing, kids, skiing. There's a lot of snow right here. And there's actually a snowstorm where I live. Okay, wonderful. Cooking, great. Outdoor, skiing, a lot of sports, a lot of friends being together, connecting, skiing, walking, running, hiking, travel, family. Excellent. Good. Meditation, nature, friends. And my dog, well, who is my dog? Adler, I think. I love my dog as well. You may see him here. Good, guys. So my job here, let's get to the serious stuff, is to get you moving and energize you. So I want you to push your desks, your chairs away. You spend enough of time during the day sitting. And let's stand up. I'll just bring my camera slightly down, sorry for that, so that you can see the full body. Okay, good. Let's stand with your feet nicely separated in parallel. And let's just inhale fully. Bring the oxygen to your body, and you exhale, reaching out of your fingers, sliding your shoulder blades down. Beautiful. And let's inhale. Susan is joining me. Great. And exhale. One more inhale. And exhale. Remember, the breath is the first and the last act of life. And it's almost the magic that what can do with the breath in your body. Inhale to grow and bring your arms up. Exhale, roll down, bring your chin to the chest, keeping a little tutu of air. So there is a little grape in between your chin and your chest. Go towards the floor and just be conscious of where your fingers are right now. It's an incredible exercise where the blood is flowing to your brain, bringing the oxygen. And on exhale, you draw your belly in and you're going to roll up slowly one vertebra at a time and bring your arms up. Now I want you to bring your arms to the side. Inhale, and on exhale, bring your right arm towards your thigh, left arm going up towards the ceiling and overreaching out of your fingers. You will in the flexion. Turn the palm of your hand towards the ceiling, and you bring your right arm up towards the other arm, bringing your hips away and down. Inhale, up and down. And again, inhale up, move your hips away from your hand that is moving. Last one, inhale up and down and come back in center with your arms to the side and change to the side. Your left hand goes down, right hand goes up and over, reaching out of your fingers. Turn your left palm of your hand and go up and down. Inhale up, stretch your ribs and down. Move your hips away when you bring your arm up and down. Last one, inhale up and exhale down. And let's come back with our arms to the side. Bring your arms up towards the ceiling. And let's look at the magic. Roll down. One vertebra at a time. Pushing into your feet. Ground your feet. And you're slowly going towards the floor. And probably you're around 1 centimeter closer. Or for some of you, maybe you managed to touch the floor. When we inhale, we draw the belly in away from the thighs and enjoy stretching your spine. And you come up from your belly, from your belly, from your belly, from your belly, from your belly. And you bring your arms up to the side and close to your hips. Now, one of my favorite exercises, I'm going just to be sideways so you can see me well. Bring your arms forward, up, and I want to see some drama when you go back. I want to see more opening through the front and bring it down. Inhale up, exhale back and down. One more, inhale up, and you want to search for more when you bring your arms back. And let's reverse. Inhale, arms go back, reach out of your fingers, more back, up and over and in front. And again, inhale back, reach out, big circles, big circle, big circle, big circle, and center. Last one, inhale back, up and center. Good. Have your hands close to your hips, align your head. And let's now listen to the conversation of your right shoulder and bring it back to center. Conversation of your left shoulder and back in center. Last one, conversation of your right shoulder and center and left shoulder. Inhale and exhale. Look at the floor. The neck is very important. We spend so much time sitting in front of the computers, phones. Extremely important to have it aligned and lengthen, and again floor and up towards the ceiling and back into center. Now I'm going to move again sideways. You're going to move your chin forward and bring your upper lip back. Bring your chin forward and lengthen your cervical spine, bringing your upper lip back. One more time. Inhale forward and exhale, bring your upper lip back. Good. We move the upper part of our body. Let's move a little bit the legs to finish. So we have a head to toe exercise session. You're going to just bend your knees slightly as if you wanted to sit on a chair probably behind you and lift. We add the arms. Lift the arms up, sit on the chair and lift. And again, down and up and down and push yourself up. Last one down, great everyone. And from here, stay down. Bring your arms up towards your ears and lower. Up towards your ears and lower. Use your back, slide your shoulder blades down and lower. We're getting ready for our ski season and lower. Good. I want us to finish with a breathing 2 times. Inhale. And exhale twice as slow, sliding the shoulder blades down. Good. And again, inhale, reach out of your fingers. Open the chest and exhale twice as slow. Bring your arms down. Thank you so much. This was 6 minutes to move your whole body, from your head to your toe. And when we saw the 2 plans, this, if you feel a little bit better, intensive, we, Susan and Faith, have created a space for you, your body, that it's natural for your body to move, to flourish. We have our bodies are made to move, and movement is medicine. So I thank you very much for joining me. Thank you so much, Susan, for having me today. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. It's Friday.
Thank you, Gabby. And it's just wonderful. And you can see all the comments in the panel. You know, every time I do this with you, I feel better afterwards than I did before. And it's only a few minutes. And so imagine if we all did this every day, just a few minutes to stretch. When you go to get your tea or coffee, just do a stretch at the coffee machine, you know, think of Gabby. We'll do a stretch, right? It makes a difference. It makes a massive difference. Small things make a big difference. Thank you so much, Gabby. Take care. So let me go back to, it's lovely to see all the comments. This is great, right? And again, you know, in today's world, we often overcomplicate things, right? We think things have got to be really difficult and challenging. You know, actually, to make ourselves feel better, to attune to our energy, it's the simple things that are going to make a massive, massive difference. So let me share the screen again, and we're going to go back into the session here. So here we go. So hopefully, yep, you can see this. So let me, sorry, bear with me. I'm going to share this clip of Jacinda Ardern. So this is Jacinda speaking to New Zealand at the beginning of the pandemic, and of course, mass uncertainty. And I want you to listen to what she says, but also how she says it as well. And then we'll have a little chat about it afterwards. So here we go. Let's listen to Jacinda.
I'm speaking directly to all New Zealanders today to give you as much certainty and clarity as we can as we fight COVID-19. Over the past few weeks, the world has changed, and it has changed very quickly. In February, it would have seemed unimaginable to close New Zealand's borders to the world, and now it has been an obvious step as we fight COVID-19. This is because we are experiencing an unprecedented event, a global pandemic that in New Zealand we have moved to fight by going hard and going early. I understand that all of this rapid change creates anxiety and uncertainty, especially when it means changing how we live. That's why today I'm going to set out for you as clearly as possible what you can expect as we continue to fight the virus together.
So what did you notice? What does she do so well? on this piece. Transparency, authenticity, and empathy. Yeah, I was discussing this, having the right ergonomic desk and chair. Yeah, absolutely, really important. But less important than regular movement, taking regular exercise. Very true. Yeah, absolutely. Compassion, promising, empathy, caring, authenticity, clarity together, certainty, eye contact. Yeah, showing that she really understands the situation. Yes, hopeful, direct communication, calming presence. Yeah, this is so important, right? Because what she does, and it's very clever, because she says, closing our borders, might have seemed radical at the time, but now it's an obvious step. So she normalizes the situation, so she's reducing uncertainty and anxiety. And she says, I'm here to give you as much clarity as I can. I can't give you full clarity, but I'm here to give you as much as I can. So again, that's reassuring for our brains, because the number one job of our brain is to keep us alive, right? So our brain in any situation will naturally go to the threat, to the negative first. That's normal, right? The brain's trying to keep you alive. The challenge then is to recognize, is it really a threat? And to move across to the opportunity. Yeah. And so this is what I think she does so beautifully. Yeah, and she regularly talks about her family, cat, daughter, step-home husband, so normalizing. Exactly, we're human, we're like each other. And in fact, this is a quote that she said, which I just love, which is, one of the criticisms I've faced over the years is that I'm not aggressive enough or assertive enough, or maybe somehow because I'm empathetic, it means I'm weak. I totally rebel against that. I refuse to believe that you cannot be both compassionate and strong. And this fits beautifully with the research of myself and a couple of colleagues here from IMD, where we looked at, how do leaders perform at their best as rated by their people? Yeah. How do you get into that high performance space? And so this model, which has evolved over time, which is very much around how do you play to thrive? And in order to play to thrive, you need to connect. We are a social species. And so we need acceptance, right? We want to belong. Otherwise, if I don't belong, I could be eaten. Yeah. So it's really important to connect. And then we need to stretch and challenge. We want to achieve. So our two legs are acceptance and achievement. And when we have both, we feel grounded. Yeah. We're calm. If we only have one, we can stand for a while, but we'll wobble and we'll fall over. So it's having both of these that gives us high performance, right? It takes courage to do this, but it releases productive energy. This is where you're playful, you're curious, you're creative. And this is what we need in organizations today. Unfortunately, in many organizations today, because we're not feeling safe, because we don't have an environment that is a secure-based space, then what happens is people will either move into play not to lose, where they, go into keep the relationship, but step off the challenge because it feels scary or risky. And so they go into a cocoon, which is a comfortable energy. And we all need time there. We all need rest and recovery. So this is good to go there. We all go in all four of these, but you don't spend too long there, because if you spend too long there, you're not achieving and challenging enough, right? It becomes too comfortable. And then what we often see with organizations, which by the way are made up of people, is that the organization looks and goes, we're in too much play not to lose. We're too complacent. We're not challenging and taking enough risks. We're not creative enough. We're not innovative enough. And so what they do is they step up the challenge. Unfortunately, if they only step up the challenge and step off the relationship, they move into play to dominate, which is micromanagement, it's over control. It's the illusion of control. And very much play to dominate is about insecurity, right? So if I don't feel safe, I want to control things because that gives me a sense of being in control, being safe, right? But it's the illusion of control. And so my lack of trust for others is actually a lack of trust in myself and a lack of trust in the process. And so therefore, by over controlling, it becomes a corrosive energy. So, when a child's learning to ride a bike and you hold the saddle, yeah, if you never let go, they never learn to ride. Yeah. So you have to let go, knowing they're going to wobble, but you encourage them. And that's how they learn, right? They do the learning, not you for them. Yeah. If a leader spends too much time into play to dominate, then what happens is employees move into play to avoid. They say, they want to do it all themselves, let them, right? We'll come in, do our jobs and go home, right? Or we'll stay home and do our jobs and switch off, right? But then you lose, that's a resigned energy. So you're losing the impetus. And it says here, Claire, psychological safety and trust seem to underlie everything in organizations. Absolutely. Because it underlies everything about being human. It underlies everything about being a living system on a living planet, right? And so this is why we have to understand that this artificial Cartesian split that we've put in place that says, business doesn't have people emotions, it's a soft skills. That's rubbish, right? The leadership is actually the hard skills, because if you get that right, the results come. Because people want to perform, they want to have meaning, they want to have purpose, but you have to create the conditions where that's possible, not where it's fear. Yeah. So it's so important to work with this model and to notice when you go out of it, because we all go out of play to thrive. And, sometimes we go down to play to lose, we rest, we recover. That's important. Sometimes we might be in play to dominate. We're frustrated, we're angry. Sometimes we go into play to avoid, right? The key here is to know, where do you go most under stress? So when it's really stressful, when everything's going wrong, where is the place that you tend to go most, and why? Because if you understand your own trigger, you can help yourself get back, right? So, for example, I know for myself that, where I tend to go most on this model is play to avoid. I plan my retirement. I'm off, And the reason I do it is because I'm exhausted, or I'm tired. And so I have to go into rest and recovery. I have to exercise. I have to look after myself. I have to reconnect with family, with friends. So I have to, replenish myself. So to make deposits in my fuel tank, so to speak, in order to get back to play to thrive, because it's actually quite difficult to go from the left-hand side straight into play to thrive, right? So when we looked at our energy zones, it's important to go through recovery in order to get back into performance. Yeah, agree with Claire, but now those who default to play to dominate are getting better at faking empathy and authenticity. Okay, it's really interesting. The positive low energy was recovery zone. Bogdan. But what's really interesting is, I don't know if you followed in the media, but in February 2021, Bill Michael, who's was the UK chairman of KPMG, he was talking on a webinar or a Zoom call or whatever to his partners. And he basically said, if you're not well, get help, but otherwise stop whinging, stop complaining. This was filmed by an employee. It was sent to the media, and he had to resign. Right? And so again, it's really important for us to all rediscover, how we can connect with, to be open, to share. Because when we do that, we meet each other at a different place. We start really seeing each other and listening to each other and attuning to each other's energy in a very different way. And, it doesn't have to be just human energy. Yeah. So you get energy by tuning to nature as well. It's hugely powerful to attune to the nature around you, to a tree, to a plant, to an animal. That also is an energetic connection that the more you learn to tune into, because it was natural, we used to do this all the time, we've just forgotten it in the rush of today's world. And so one of the challenges here is what's going on in our brain. Is I want to share this model with you, which is the FACE model, which is fairness, autonomy, certainty, and empathy. So we have these triggers in our brain. If they're pressed positively, that's great. If they're pressed negatively, what happens is we move away from them, right? So we jump to a reaction, right? To fight, flight, freeze, because it's an attack that threatens us, right? So we could be rejected and we could fail. So it evokes a very powerful response. Yes, tomorrow we'll be sharing all of the slides. Absolutely. So let me just share with you. I'm going to walk through each of these, and then we're going to watch a video that kind of puts them all together. So fairness, what we know is humans are enormously sensitive to fairness, as are any social species. If any of you have more than one dog, and you give one a bone, the other one is like, where's mine, right? So it's not just humans, it's all social species. We're very tuned to fairness. And what we know from the neuroscience is that if you allow someone to express what they don't like, without trying to solve it. Now, this is really important. Yeah. So you create a space where people can share how they feel. And it's not about fixing it. It's not about changing it or correcting it or telling them they're wrong. It's about just listening, just creating the space where people can share. Then it reduces the negative emotion in the amygdala. So by allowing people to say that they don't feel good, that they're frustrated, that they're irritated, that they're tired, that they're depressed, that they're burnt out, a little bit like we did with the managing energy zone chart, by allowing people to say where they are, they feel a little bit better because they've been able to express and they've been heard. And again, so this is often counterintuitive because leaders we don't want to hear the negative, right? And so what you see is often in organizations, leaders only want to hear the positive under stress. They don't want to hear the negative. And it's almost like you're a bad employee if you raise the negative. That is completely wrong. It's the opposite. If we can hold a space where it's okay to share, then people step in. Then you're giving people a chance to re-energize, right? And so this is so important in today's world. The next one is autonomy, which is, again, we are a living organism and we all want agency. We all want to act. And again, how do you create the conditions where people feel well enough to act, to do something? Yeah. And this is about giving choice as well. LinkedIn did a survey where they asked people, would you rather have a 20% pay increase at work or more autonomy to make your own decisions, to make your own choices? And more than 50% of the respondents said they'd rather have more autonomy than a 20% pay increase, right? So again, how are you introducing choice, options to people? Yeah, so people can pick and choose, and people can have a sense of say, yeah, within what they're doing. Because that, again, helps people to come in. That gives them a sense of acceptance and it gives them a sense of achievement, right? So anytime you can introduce autonomy, it's going to be positive, yeah? The next one is certainty. And of course, this is one of the most damaging ones for the human brain. We can deal with good news and we can deal with bad news. What we cannot deal with is not knowing for a protracted period of time. And this is basically what we're living now, is being in uncertainty for a protracted period of time. And so we have to reframe this, yeah, because if we are looking for certainty, and then what often happens is we start putting in the artificially created things, thinking that we're putting certainty in, and what we're doing is we're just boundarying ourselves, we're just limiting ourselves with artificial constructs, right? So we have to kind of embrace the uncertainty, and that's where the secure base space is so important, because if I feel held, if I've got people around, and some of my secure bases are on this on the chat, which is wonderful, right? You can then fall, and it's like falling onto a trampoline. You bounce back, right? Your secure bases are the springs on the trampoline that hold the trampoline taut, and then you fall and you bounce, right? So it gives you this resilience. And they did some research where they put people in front of a computer screen, and on the screen were 12 paving slabs. And they wired them up to measure their stress response. And they also attached them to an electric shock machine. Yeah. And so the first group, basically your task was to click on the slabs and they'd flip. And if a snake appeared behind a slab, the first group, they said, you definitely won't get an electric shock. Don't worry, right? The second group, they said, if you get a snake, you're definitely going to get an electric shock. And the third group, they said, if you get a snake, you may or may not get an electric shock, right? And then they measured the stress response. And the stress response by far was higher on number 3. Because if it's 2, okay, here comes a snake. Okay, here comes a shock. Ow, right? I know it's coming. Yeah, I can prepare myself. If it's 3, you're in a constant state of alert. Is it coming? Isn't it coming? Is it coming? Isn't it coming? Right? And so this is why it's so important, like Jacinda tried to do, right, is to give as much clarity as you can and to create opportunities for people to meet and to collaborate and to share. Yeah, exactly. And Claire, yeah, I mean, you're raising a wonderful point. One of my passions is communication. And, you know, in most organizations, they communicate and then they say, we haven't got anything else to say. So they don't communicate, right? And then there's a vacuum. And what do human beings fill a vacuum with? They fill it with FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Why? Because the number one job of your brain is to keep you alive. And in a vacuum, you fill it with negative stuff because you don't know what's going on. And so it's a real error, a real mistake to not communicate regularly. And in fact, during the COVID, Hans Vestberg of Verizon actually upped his communication massively. And every single day he did a webcast with employees, right? And so, you know, how do you make sure that you are communicating enough? You need to up the communication in times of uncertainty, not reduce it. Yeah. And so that leads to empathy, which is the E of the FACE model, which is, again, we are a social species, right? This is why these mediums are so challenging for us. There are pluses, you know, but there's also minuses. And so, you know, what we see again from the neuroscience is that if you exclude someone, it actually lights up the same part of the brain as physical pain. So when someone says, I feel hurt, they're actually feeling hurt, right? It's like physical pain. And so it's so important to create opportunities where people can share, collaborate together, professionally, socially, make these available. This is why people want to meet more in times of stress. We're a social species. It makes us feel safe, right? We're part of the pack. I belong, right? And so how can we do this? Yeah. And again, someone's saying here, what about in times of crisis, you don't have the time to explain it, but to act? I would argue here actually that, there's two things. One is, if you have a goodwill account, if you've been in Play to Thrive and you've made a lot of deposits, people will give you a bit of leeway if you make a withdrawal. So if suddenly you move quickly and you have to act and you do something without communicating, but you say you have to explain it, right? You have to tell people, because more often than not, what happens is we are implicitly communicating. We think we've said, it's clear to us, but it isn't clear to everybody else, right? And so you have to be much more explicit. You have to explain why you didn't, right? And the reasons, because then people will go, oh, okay, right? People are reasonable, right? They want to be accepted and they want to achieve, right? They want to belong and they want to perform, yeah? And so again, it's changing this mindset of, if you're not monitoring people, then they're going to slack. Absolutely not, right? Absolutely not. And so let me share this clip with you. And this is a clip of monkeys, right, which are a social species, yeah? So these monkeys, they know each other, they're in the same department, they have the same rank, right? And their task is to give the researcher a stone. And they give the researcher a stone, and the researcher gives them a piece of cucumber. Now, cucumber to capuchin monkeys is like cucumber to you or I. It's okay, it's not great, but they'll eat it, right? They'll do it 20 times in a row until you introduce inequity, unfairness, and then you see what happens. So here we go.
What we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side, and if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. If you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task, and we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us, and that's what she does. And she gets a grape, and she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here. Let me tell you, I still have 2 minutes left. Let me tell you a funny story about this. This study became very famous, and we got a lot of comments, especially anthropologists, economists, philosophers. They didn't like this at all because they had decided in their mind, I believe, that fairness is a very complex issue and that animals cannot have it. And so one philosopher even wrote us that it was impossible that monkeys had a sense of fairness because fairness was invented during the French Revolution. So now, and another one wrote a whole chapter saying that he would believe it had something to do with fairness if the one who got grapes would refuse the grapes. Now, the funny thing is that Sarah Brosnan, who's been doing this with chimpanzees, had a couple of combinations of chimpanzees where indeed the one who would get the grape would refuse the grape until the other guy also got a grape. So we're getting very close to the human sense of fairness, and I think philosophers need to rethink their philosophy for a while. So let me
so here, this is just lovely, right? Because here you're seeing what's happening all the time, right? And so it's so important around these four are interconnected: fairness, autonomy, empathy, and certainty. And sometimes you can't have one, but you can dial up the others to help balance. And so we're going to launch a poll. Thank you, Faith, which is which of the four areas is most challenging for you and your teams at the moment, right? Which of these is the most challenging? And I'm just noticing some of the comments. Yeah, Katie, thank you very much. I'd love to get connected. That sounds wonderful. Yeah, I think it comes back to this idea of human potential, right? And how you're creating conditions, because people do want to do well. People do want to grow. Not everyone wants to grow at the same rate or the same level or the same thing. That's okay, right? The difference is good, right? Diversity is extraordinarily healthy to stay alive in living systems. We don't want everyone to be the same. And so we have to create environments where it's okay for people to express what their needs are, what their wants are, and adapting accordingly. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got 80% participation. So at the results, we've got probably no surprise. Half say certainty. Second is fairness. Third is empathy. And fourth is autonomy. And so again, probably not surprising in today's world that this certainty one. And again, this is, I think, a wonderful opportunity. It's a huge threat, absolutely. And what I'm discovering from my research that I'm doing with senior leaders around the concept of hope and despair, and some of the people on the chat have actually helped me with the research, so thank you with that, is actually it's not hope or despair. It's hope and despair. So how do I hold the polarities? How do I live with a sense of despair about what's happening and a sense of hope and agency to act? And that's the importance, is combining them both. So facing up to the reality, discussing it, talking about it, being heard, being accepted, and then working together, co-creating how we can move forward together, right, in order to make a difference, right, in order to shift things. And if we look at some research that has come out of what's happened during the pandemic with people working from home, it's very much a question of trust. A number of you, Helen, take care. A number of you have raised this point about trust and psychological safety. And I found these reports fascinating, right? So McKinsey did some research. And if you look at the C-suite executives, what they're saying is actually, while people have been working from home during the pandemic, there's been an improvement in productivity, improvement in customer satisfaction, improvement in employee engagement, and improvement in diversity and inclusion, right? So this is all great news, C-suite. Managers believe that the performance of remote workers is usually lower than that of people who work in office settings, right? So 60% are either unsure or agree that it's lower. And then employees are saying, 62% saying, over the past week, I was expected to respond to electronic or telephone messages immediately. And so what's fascinating here is you see, that the results are actually positive. And yet people are in this high alert state, because if I don't respond to your message straight away, you might think I'm out walking the dogs. You might assume I'm not working, right? And so the sense of a lack of trust becomes absolutely critical and vital here. And this is why we talk about this importance of this model, the secure bases, which give a sense of hope. If you take your children to the playground, right, you don't say, okay, we've arrived at the playground. You have 1 minute on the slides. I'm then going to blow a whistle and you have 2 minutes on the swings. And then after that, you're going to go straight to the roundabout and you've got 3 minutes on the roundabout, right? Of course not. You don't do that. You say, off you go and play, right? So you create the conditions and then you empower them. And they run off when they play and they might fall and they might fail and they might get anxious and they might laugh and they might have joy. They have all those emotions in that playground. And that is where you create the environment where curiosity, innovation, creativity, and playfulness come up. And those of you that have been on high-performing teams, high-performing teams are enormously playful, right? They tease each other. They're a lot of fun. I had the privilege of being on a high-performing team. We called ourselves TPMO, and we're still in touch. We've been disbanded now as a team. We've all left the organization for more than a decade, and we still meet once a year. But there was a lot of teasing, a lot of playfulness, but it was also very challenging, right? It was tough too. And so it's this dance between the care and the dare that gives people a sense of hope. And so how do we create playgrounds, right? Because if we're not doing that, then we're going to be in a state of fear. Yeah, we're not going to bring our best, right? Because I might be eaten. and we want people to bring their best. We want to bring our own best to the play. Yeah. And so this is where it's even more important. It's not just about us. It's not just about our teams. It's not just about organizations. And you can see behind me, we have the SDGs and you have UN SDG number 3, good health and well-being. This is critical, not just for organizations, but also for society and for our survival on the planet. And Attenborough said, if there's only a fragment of hope left, you have a responsibility to do something about it. And so we do have this opportunity in this uncertainty to move from an old style of leadership, which is ego, which is, tended to be, white Western men at the top and then a hierarchy down. And we use a lot in organizations, we use a lot of machine metaphors, right? The engine of growth, KPIs, efficiencies, controls, right? We're not machines, we're living systems, right? And living systems, we need to grow and we need rest and recovery as well in order to grow. And those of you that are sports people, I know a number of you are sports people, you can't compete all the time, right? You compete, then you rest and recover, and then you train and you rest and you train and you rest and you train and you rest, and then you compete again, right? And so, it's so obvious. And yet somehow the logic became, at work, it's a machine 24/7. You've got to be, the badge of honor to work all hours, to be there, right? And so it's very much shifting from being apart from nature to being a part of nature. And actually this morning, I was given a gift by nature. Those of you that live in Switzerland, we've had a massive snowstorm this morning. And so coming into to work was a challenge, but it was wonderful because, suddenly you realize, nature is stronger than us, right? And there's a feedback loop. And if we keep pushing the boundaries, we're starting to see these feedback loops, right? And how we deal with them, yeah? And so it's from power over to power with. We don't have the answers. We don't have the solutions. We have to co-create them. And we have to co-create them together across boundaries, across areas, across diversity, across age groups. The more we can engage the collective wisdom, I see wisdom being mentioned, absolutely. The more we can engage our collective wisdom from all levels, right? All levels. The other day I came into IMD to deliver something, and I was kind of like, it was a tough morning. And I came in, and our receptionist, I said, and she said, yes, but aren't we privileged? And I'm like, wow, yes, you're right, we are, right? And so we lift each other on a daily basis, and we can help each other to reframe and to switch. And this is why it's so important, the collective. And I want to touch on something, and I want to thank Lydia for raising this. An important part of this is understanding how are you managing your own living system, because it starts with us, right? And my mother, she's now 93. She lives with us. She's an amazing woman, an amazing secure base for me. When she was a young girl, her father, my grandfather, worked for Kodak. And during the war, the Second World War, she was evacuated from London to America. So her and her siblings were moved, across the ocean to America, away from the parents for 5 years and separated into different families. And anyway, one of the things she brought back was a few of these books, which I have, Dr. Frank Crane's essays. And so Dr. Frank Crane wrote these essays. It was released in 1919. And they're 4-minute essays. And I remember when I was 11 reading one of these essays. And he talks about, he was obviously a very well-off gentleman. And he talks about he'd bought an automobile. And he had his chauffeur look after the automobile because this automobile had cost him a few $1,000s. And, that's a lot of money back then. And therefore, he wouldn't dream of leaving this automobile out in bad weather. He wouldn't put the wrong fuel in the automobile. He made sure it was looked after because he wanted this car to last him for 10 years. And then he says, and so what am I putting into my body, right? My body has to last me a lot longer than my car. And how am I treating my body? What is the energy I'm putting in? And so, in today's world, we have a lot of bad habits and we have a lot of stuff that's addictive, that's sold to us, consumerism, right? In order to keep us buying it, that's not good for us. And we know it's not good for us. Our bodies can feel it. Our bodies will tell us if we can attune to it. And so again, it doesn't mean you don't treat yourself. We all love treats, right? But be conscious. What am I putting into myself, the fuel, and what reaction is that giving? Because it will make a difference to your energy levels and to how you can perform. And so that brings me back as we close to the magic pill, right? So those of you who wanted the magic pill, I'm going to give you the magic pill now, magically, through the webinar, right? It's not a real pill, but guess what it is? What is your magic pill? Any ideas? Type it into the chat if you've got any ideas, what you think the magic pill is. Yes, well done. Yeah, the magic pill is indeed sleep. So the side effects of missing sleep, if you're getting less than 7 hours per night, these are the side effects, massive side effects, right? And sleep is a major recovery mechanism. Naps are great. I often, if I've got 10, 15 minutes, that was one of the gifts of being an Olympic swimmer was, you had to catch sleep when you could. So I can sleep anywhere. And just closing your eyes for 10 minutes and taking a nap recharges you. It can be really healthy. Yeah. And you can see here the reasons. I'll share the slides with you. Again, Harvard Business Review, international study of executives, 42% are getting 6 or fewer hours of shut-eye a night, right? So the majority of executives are getting less than what's needed to operate well. Yeah. Therefore, decision-making is impacted, emotional regulation is impacted, everything that's going on in the organization is impacted. And a really scary statistic from the British Pilots Association is that 56% of pilots admitted to falling asleep in the cockpit. 33% awoke to find the co-pilot asleep as well. Yeah. And 84% believe their abilities were impacted by tiredness. We have to close, so I'm going to just say here, this is a great tool for managing your energy with your teams. The circle of control is very small in life. There's very few things that we're fully in control of. Perhaps the only thing is our attitude, and often that's based on our past patterns and behaviors. And so life is about things that concern us and things we can influence. And so it's about separating those things that concern us in life that we can do nothing about. Let's name them, put them on Post-its, get them on the wall, get them out, express them, share them, not trying to fix them, we're just sharing them. And then let it go and move across to, okay, what can we influence? What can we do stuff about? Autonomy. And that shifts you into a helpful state, into a positive state, and it'll manage your energy. Here's some hints and tips. I won't go through them all due to obviously our time. And I just want to end here with a short clip that these are simple steps, nature, letting go of the electronic media for a while, sharing your emotions, gratitude journals, exercise, mindfulness, all these things. There's so many things that we can do that make a difference for us and for the people around us. And sometimes people say, well, I don't have time. I'm too busy. Let me share with you and end with this wonderful clip which just shows it only takes a moment to make a difference. So this is Usain Bolt, truly seeing someone and making them feel valuable, making them feel worthwhile. Yeah. He's at the London Olympics. He's going round to do the double-double. So this is his biggest moment in his life to achieve the double-double. And as he goes round, he takes a moment to notice the guy carrying his clothes and look at the reaction. Look at the reaction you get. It's a very short clip. Here we go.
Two-time Olympic champions in the 100 meters. And tonight, he could become the only man in history to double back and win the Olympic 100 and 200 double twice. He did it in Beijing. That time, there are few athletes.
I just love the guy's face, right? So, most people ignore those people. They're carrying their clothes. He takes a moment, in major moment of his career, to notice the guy, fist pump him, I gotcha. And the guy's still talking about it, right? He was just beaming. And so, it doesn't take long to make a difference for each other. Yeah. And when we connect to our humanity and living kind, broader than just human, the more than human, we do live in a magical world. It does. Energy is all around us if we only open our eyes and tap into it and start leading differently. And so let me end with this wonderful quote from Howard Schultz. Dream more than others think practical. Expect more than others think possible. Care more than others think wise. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. It's been such a joy to see you and hope to see you again soon, somewhere, somehow. Take care. Thank you.